Hey guys, it's Sam and I'm here for a little unhaul for you. So occasionally I will go through my shelves. I've gone through my TBR in the past, but that's down to a really good point. But now I occasionally will go through my shelves and get rid of some of the books that were just mediocre reads, 3-star reads, things that I don't really remember, I don't really talk about, they're not really books with themes that I bring up a lot or feel the need to have. I don't necessarily hate them, but I don't really love them either, and they're just kind of slowly being moved to the lower parts of my shelf where I forget about them. So if they've been there for a little while, at this point I feel like it's time to get rid of them. So the first book is Avalon by Mindy Arnett. This is the first book in a YA science fiction duology. I actually kind of like this book. It was a fun sci-fi romp with a crew of teens on a ship and whatever. I like this first book a lot. I didn't love the second book, but this is not a series that I want to reread at all. The Witch of Salt and Storm by Kendall Culper. This was a mediocre witch read that I read last October when I was reading a bunch of witch books. It just wasn't really a witch story. It was more of a historical fiction than a fantasy or like witch story in any way. So I think this was like a 2-star read for me and I don't really feel the need to keep it. Another just okay witch read was The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. Definitely better than the previous book I talked about, but I still don't plan on rereading this book. This is sort of like a one-trick pony type story. There are parts of the story that I didn't tend to like. I did a review, I believe, for this book, but just not one that I really feel the need to keep around. I love the cover like so much. I think that's why I kept it longer than I necessarily needed to. But it's not a book that I really plan to reread. We have Scarlet by A.C. Gowan. This is the first book in a YA trilogy about Robin Hood. Not good. This was actually a not good book at all. I did not enjoy this whatsoever. This just was very typical of its time as far as like a 2013, 2012 read. It had a really bad love triangle. Both of the guys were douches, and I just don't plan on reading the rest of the series at all. Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis was a book that I had really high hopes for because it's necromancy. This is also a duology, I believe, but it just didn't really have a lot of necromancy. It took a long time to get to the point. There was necromancy at the very end. There is a second book in the series, but I don't really think I'm going to continue with it, and this just didn't really live up to what it could have been for me. My Plain Jane by 3 authors. It was fine. This was a fun kind of like retelling of the Jane Eyre story, but not completely the Jane Eyre story. There's lots of things that are kind of switched. It's a little bit more of like a comedy. It was a fun little romp. I think I also read this last October for like more like spooky reads, but it was just fine, and it's not one that I need to keep on my shelves by any means. The Flame and the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. I said that there's not a lot of books that I hate on this list, but there actually are. This book I really did not like. I think it was a 1-star read for me. It just didn't live up to my hopes and expectations. I found that the world was kind of interesting, but otherwise the characters were awful. The like love story sort of parts were awful. The plot I didn't like. It wasn't a series I'm going to continue at all. The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Corey is an Aladdin retelling, but it features more of the story of the genie, and in here it's a female genie. I liked this actually. This was one of my favorite books of that year, just like more like fun-wise. I think it was like a 4-star read for me, but it's again not a book that I'm going to reread by any means. As a standalone, I still really like it and I would recommend it, but it's not one that I'm going to pick up again, so I don't need it taking up space on my shelves. Then we have The Trader Brew Comet by Seth Dickinson. This is the first book in an adult fantasy series, much more politically driven and motivated. Our main character is definitely a Slytherin. It had some parts that I did enjoy, but overall it wasn't something that really gripped me, and it's not a series that I'm going to continue. The ThreeBody Problem by Sixon Liu is the first book in a very complex, hard sci-fi series, in my opinion. It's the first book in a trilogy. I did not love this. I have forgotten a lot about it. It's very weird. It's just not like, I don't love hard sci-fi. I like more space opera, fun action adventure romps, and this is much higher than that, and while I value those kinds of stories, it's just not something that I really enjoy, so again, doesn't need to stay on my shelves at this point. Then we have Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. This is a Japanese sort of retelling of the Snow White myth, which following sort of the evil queen, and it was enjoyable, but again, just kind of like a 2.5 to 3-star read. I didn't want to continue on with this series. I think it's a duology, and I just have forgotten about it since. So again, doesn't need to be on my shelves. And last but not least, we have the first 3 books in the Throne of Glass series. I have held on to these for quite some time because I do love the way they look. These are the British covers, the white covers, but I'm just not going to continue this series. I've talked about that, how I liked the series. When I read it, I had expectations and hopes, and then I was hearing things about the later books that came out. I lost interest. I don't particularly love her writing at this point anymore. I'm not completely opposed to reading future books by her if they do appeal to me, but they kind of don't at this point. Like her next series, I just really kind of don't want to read. I'm sort of still following the ACOTAR series in theory, but I'm not really paying much attention to it, and I'm just not going to continue with this series. And if I want to, I'll just get it from the library or whatever. So I don't need to keep these 3 books on my shelf taking up a lot of space. So these are going. So that is it for the books that I am unhauling. I am probably going to be selling these books. I have opened a small little let go store basically, and I've posted the link on Twitter. I am trying to move. Yes, I move a lot. But I have officially decided that the East Coast is not for me. I want to move back to the Midwest, not my hometown, but just the Midwest in general. And I'm trying to save up money to do that, to then move as soon as possible, because my heart and my soul is not happy here. So usually I would take these to a used bookstore and sell them, but I'm actually trying to sell them online just to add to that budget, that moving budget. And a lot of you in the past have asked if you could buy some books for me when I do unhaul them, so I will link that down below. You can choose to buy them or not. It's not a big, you know, like I'm not telling you to, but I know a lot of you when I do unhauls are like, can I please get those books from you and things like that, especially some of the more like British covers and different things that I might have. So definitely check that out if you are interested and if you want to contribute to my happiness and joy not living in Delaware anymore. That'd be really great. So comment down below, let me know some books that you've recently unhauled, or if you have any problems unhauling. I kind of want more people to unhaul things and just get rid of things that no longer bring you joy, even if they are books. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.